we all say that our partner knows us better than ourselves. And we've all somehow accepted that as a healthy relationship, as that's the way it should be. But would it not be more beneficial if we knew ourselves to the same deep level as our partner? If we understood the way we think, the way we react, the reason we are who we are? Why is it that we know all of this about our partner, except we can't begin to understand it about ourselves? Would it not make life so much easier? Would it not make our dreams come true faster? Would it not make arguments easier if we could have this own perspective on ourselves? This is Two Strangers Meet, where you get to be a part of the conversation. I'm your host, Jazzy Hermione, where we talk all things life, change and challenges, where every story matters. Your voice, your experience, let's meet. So I want to talk about my whole experience since leaving high school and everything I've learned about myself, while also talking about this conversation about knowing ourselves and how to better understand who we are at our deepest levels. And I think the only way you can really truly understand yourself is by spending time alone. And obviously we're all in our 20s, or most of you are in that matter. That our 20s are such a fundamental year where we learn about ourselves. I think growing up in high school, we are so heavily shaped by the people who are around us, by our friends, by our teachers, by our students, by our parents. I don't think from the age that we're born to the age of 18, you rarely spend time alone. Most of us are living with our parents, going to school 5 days a week, being surrounded with hundreds of people every single day. There is never a moment where you're by yourself. And like if you're at school and you're by yourself, you're classed as a loner, you know? Or like it's a negative thing to do things alone. Like, oh my God, she doesn't have friends, she's doing it alone. Doing stuff alone is so beneficial. And I think it's not until we grow up and enter our 20s when we kind of are forced to be by ourselves, because obviously making friends is hard. We're not forced to be with our parents every single day. We're not forced to be in groups of 100 kids at once. That there's so many more opportunities to be alone. I think it's actually harder to find time with people than find time by yourself. I'm going to get into my journey since graduating high school, but I just want to talk about this whole concept first, that unless we're spending time with ourselves, we're never going to better understand ourselves. Like going back to how I opened this is we know our partners better than ourselves, and that's mainly because we spend so much time with our partners. When we spend so much time with them, we start to understand them, we start to see patterns, we start to see the way they think, and we can predict how they're going to react. And it's the same thing about yourself, but you just need to start spending more time alone. I feel like in this world we're so overstimulated. We always have stuff going. There's always stuff in our ears. That can I challenge you to spend 10 minutes in silence? And no, I'm not saying sit in a room, dark room by yourself, no noise. Absolutely not. But I'm saying, could you go for a 10-minute walk without listening to something? Could you clean the house without having a show on the TV, for example? Could you just give yourself 10 minutes with your thoughts? And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. At first, your thoughts are going to go crazy. You're going to start overthinking and you'll be like, this is actually not helping me by any means by being with my thoughts. But then if we're never actually tackling our thoughts and we're just distracting ourselves by putting a music in or a podcast in, because we can't just sit there for 40 minutes. This is an extreme example. We can't just sit there for 40 minutes on a train trip thinking to ourselves. It's just a band-aid solution. How are you meant to understand yourself more? How are you meant to understand what you truly value and what goals you're trying to achieve and what the problems are if you can't just sit with yourself and ask yourself that? And yeah, it's really easy to just sit here and go, oh, this is the answer for my problems. But then I'm like, you've thought about that for the whole of 2 minutes. Have you actually given it proper thought? And yes, there's an argument that we're always thinking. We're thinking whenever we're doing any single task. But it's like, okay, but are you actually being present in the conversation? If your partner and you were having a deep conversation and he was off doing the dishes or watching TV or doing work as he was having this conversation, would you be okay with that? Or would you be like, no, stop, sit down and being present with me. Let's actually talk about this and let's focus on this conversation. And it's the same thing with yourself. If you're trying to tackle something and you're just thinking about it here, there, every day, everywhere as you go on your everyday, you're never actually giving it full thought. You're always half off somewhere else, half off doing something else. That sometimes you need to sit down and be like, okay, let's think about this. And I know it's hard because like literally whenever I go, okay, I need to think about something, I just have no ideas and my mind goes blank. Take this podcast, for example. This morning I was like, what am I going to talk about today? Could not think of anything. I sat down with my laptop, tried to do some dot points, and honestly couldn't tell you any ideas. And I was going to come here and just talk about my journey. And then as I sat down with this mic, I started talking about this. So this is what we're running with. Now, sometimes ideas just spark out of nowhere. So I just want to challenge you, go give it 5 minutes. 5 minutes becomes 10 minutes. And I love to do this on my walks. I start with just 5 minutes at the start or at the end, just with my own thoughts. And eventually you'll start realizing that sometimes you actually prefer to just be with your own thoughts. That sometimes I'm like, I do not want to put a podcast in my ears at 5 a.m. And I will just walk for 45 minutes thinking to myself. And it's crazy. Sometimes I'll just think about random things. It will be things I'm stressing about, anxious about. But then other times I will start by something like that. And then I'll just go on random tangents in my mind. For example, which happens like almost every day, I'll be thinking about something. Something will spark my curiosity or spark a thought. And then I'll like go full like dreamer mode. Like let's take this podcast for example. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be crazy if I was told someone I was doing a podcast and then they wanted to be on it, and then we just randomly started having the interview in the cab car, like in an Uber over in the US? Like that's how crazy my mind went. And then I went even further and I just went with this tangent for 45 minutes. And like maybe you could talk about this as manifestation or something, but it was so cool just visualizing and coming up with this narrative of like crazy things that could happen, because how can you tell me that's not going to happen, you know? Anyway, this tangent went on that like I was having an interview with this Uber driver, and then it went viral throughout the US. I had news people wanting to have me like do a segment. The podcast popped off. Everyone loved it. I ended up on Call Her Daddy podcast with Alex Cooper. It was weird. It was crazy, but like that could happen, you know? Who's to say it's not going to happen? But it was just fun to like come up with these tangents. And yeah, sometimes they go in the opposite where it's like worst case scenario. But then I'm like, no, if the worst case scenario could happen, the best case scenario can happen. And I would rather focus on the best case scenario rather than worst. And truthfully, I can find 10 different best case scenarios and like probably only one negative thing. Like I'll just focus on that one negative avenue where I can come up with 10 different ways this podcast could pop off. But basically back to the whole thing about being alone. One of the most amazing experiences you can give yourself is moving away from your hometown. And I think, or like moving out of your family home. I think this is so truly valuable just from the fact that you are no longer in a house full of your siblings, full of your parents. You are in a house probably alone, to be honest, or you're with roommates, but you're not going to talk to your roommates as much as you talk to your parents or your family, you know? You're not forced to like sit down at the family table every night for dinner. You're probably going to spend a lot more time alone. In a city, you don't know anyone. So you're not going to be going out every single night with friends. You're not going to go to your friend's house on the weekend or go away with them because truthfully, you don't have friends in that area because you just moved there. So if you can, I highly recommend to move out of home. It was the most beneficial experience for me. Not only do you spend time alone, where you get to understand yourself more, but you also get to have that separation from your old life, where it's kind of an opportunity for you to kind of figure out who you want to be. Before you're 18, you're constantly surrounded by people. You kind of just a morph of the people around you. That as soon as you move out, you've got this fresh start. You can be whoever you want. I changed my nickname from Jazzy to Jazz, and it's great because now I know who's known me before and who knows me like now. You can be whoever you want to be. You can rewrite your story, and you don't have to stick to anything you felt you were boxed in with before. No one in this new town probably knows you. So you can be whoever you want to be. And also, this is also your permission slip that you can just randomly stop and randomly rewrite your story, even if you're still in the same hometown. It just may be a little more challenging because there's heaps of people you know. And you may have more doubt and fear and whatnot. But in saying that, move out of your hometown because it's most crazy beneficial. I basically turned 18 in July, moved out Feb. So I had about 6 months finishing graduating school, went on a couple trips, then moved to Sydney. Knew basically no one in a tiny university apartment. Grateful for the experience. A lot of time by myself. And you're making constantly new friends and figuring out who you are. So that was an experience in its all. And then I decided to move again. The following year, I moved to the Gold Coast knowing one person, which was my boyfriend and obviously his parents, and lived once again by myself, this time not in uni. So I did not have the same social interactions as I did for the first move. But let me tell you, that second move I think was so much easier, mainly just because I've already done it once. And yes, the first time was so scary. And I don't think I realized how scary it was until looking back. I was like, yeah, I probably wasn't okay. I was okay, but looking back, I'm like, oh, I probably wasn't thriving as much as I thought I was thriving. I don't think I've ever actually stopped and go, oh, that was actually a hard thing to do. In my head, I've always known I was going to move away. I always knew it was a great experience. My older sister had moved out of home at the same age that I did, that I was like, it was normal to me, But I don't think I actually realized how big of a jump I did until probably reflecting on it. I'm like, oh yeah, that was kind of a big move. I remember when my best friend moved halfway through that year and she was living on the same floor as me in the apartment building, and it was great. Had my friends back, It is such a tricky thing. But I think it's also tricky making friends in your 20s. I think I've always said I've always wanted more. I've always had these big dreams, big goals. And I want friends who also have that. I want friends who are really dedicated towards their goals, working really hard. And look, this is probably not the case, but this is just my experience. That everyone at uni wasn't like that. And I think everyone who's the most 18-year-olds, I'm not saying everyone. If this isn't you, I'm not targeting you. I know it's not everyone. But from my experience and who I was talking to, most people I was talking to, so nice, so lovely, so kind, but they didn't have the same goals as me. They weren't living alone. They weren't paying rent. They didn't move across the state to a new place. They were all still living with their families, going to uni. Nothing really had changed for them since graduating high school. They went out drinking a lot and partying, and yes, that's completely normal and completely okay, and I'm not shaming it by any means, but it's not what I was doing. I just did not enjoy partying and staying up late. Never been a late owl. Sorry, just never been. And no shame to you whatsoever if you do that. Good for you. As long as you enjoy it, good for you. If you don't enjoy it, this is your permission slip. You don't have to, and there's other people out there who don't have to. And yes, I knew there was people who don't have to, that don't want to, but I couldn't find those people in a way. And I still don't have my friendship group. I'm going to be completely honest with you, because finding friends in your 20s is a lot harder than people think. And I think when you're 18 in high school, you realize that once you graduate that the friends you had, I'm not talking about all my friends here. There are probably 5 to 10 that I do like. I promise. But it's kind of like when you're in high school, you realize that the friends you're friends with, you kind of just force friendships because you see them every single day. It's not until you stop going to school that you realize that I don't actually want to hang out with these people. The only reason I was hanging out with them is because it was forced proximity. But once you leave and you're like, okay, I have to make effort to go hang out with them, to go see them, to go talk to them. You're like, wait, I actually would not choose you to be my friend if I wasn't forced to be with you every single day. And I think that's what a lot of people may struggle with after they leave high school, being like, I have no friends. And it's because, yeah, we didn't really have the opportunity to pick our friends. We had 100 people in our grade and we didn't want to be seen as losers. So we made friends because we were forced to, in a way. Going on from that, the friendships do just fall apart, And there could be some really nice friends that you had in high school and you try and keep in contact with them, but they just fall apart. And that's completely fine because you are completely outgrowing your old identity in a way. I've had this whole conversation about being alone and getting to know ourselves and entering your 20s and moving out to figure out who you are. But it's also such a pivotal time for you, and you grow so much from moving out that you become a different person. And maybe those friendships that you used to have just don't align anymore. And that's completely okay. And I'm not saying cut them out, never speak to them again, tell them they're horrible. No, not at all. But it's like being okay that they may fall apart, that they may not be the person you call when you're having a hard day, that maybe you do chat once a year, and that's okay. There's a place for those friendships and there's nothing wrong with them. And with that too, I remember there was a quote. Some people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I think that's very important to remember that not everyone's going to be there for years and years to come. And that's okay. Not every person is meant to be like that. Some people are just going to be there for a season, or sometimes they're just going to be there to teach you a lesson. And that's okay too. But there's a random concept that I think I was talking to a friend about, that it's okay to have different levels of friendships. Like, you've got the closest ones to you that you love dearly. Then you've got some other ones that you might just want to, when you want to have spontaneously, you could just call up and hang out. There's a bunch of levels of friendships and types of friendships that you can have. Like, I have three really, really deep friendships. Like, I talk all the time to them. Actually, I don't talk to them all the time. But I know if I ever called them up upset or sad, they would call me back and we could sit on the phone for hours and hours and that would help me. They will be there for the rest of my life. And I truly, truly value those friendships. Okay, they also don't live in my state, but they're also not the friendships that I would call up and be like, hey, you want to go out tonight? Because they're not in my state. Even if they were, I probably wouldn't, because... No, I would. I really would. It would be a completely different story if they lived in my city. These are the people like we go on girl trips with, you know? But then there's other people that I can't have these deep conversations with, that I haven't really spoken deep. They don't know about my dreams. They don't really know who I am. But they're just fun people to hang out with, and we just genuinely enjoy our time together. So I'll go over there on the weekend and we'll play board games for the night. And we laugh and we just not serious. And like love my friends that I'm really have deep conversations with. But sometimes you just want to laugh and to like clock off and like just not think and just laugh and be like, yeah, no, I don't know what I want in life, you know? Like, not scared about anything kind of thing. And then the other people, you're like, okay, this is my deepest, darkest secret. Help me through this. What can we unpack? Every friendship has a different purpose and you call on them for different reasons, you know? Like, there's some friends that, especially friends of friends that I hang out with, I'm like, wait, I actually really like hanging out with you. This is great. But it's like, I'm not going to tell you my insecurities, you know? Because we're not at that level yet. And maybe we will get to that level. But it's okay to just have surface level friendships sometimes. And I feel like in this day and age that we're like, we need deep conversations. Like, sometimes you don't. You don't always need to have that jazz. I don't just write off someone just because you're not going to have that deep conversation with. As long as you're still being fulfilled about hanging out with them and you don't go home being like, I just wasted the last 3 hours. No, it's okay. It's okay to have different levels of friendships. But I think about the whole concept of moving out of home, getting to know yourself more, also comes into the reason why I love travel so much, is that for me, traveling is about learning. And yes, there's a million places I want to see and holidays I want to go to, but the main reason I love travel so much is for meeting new people and meeting new cultures and ways of thinking. That for me, the point of traveling is to travel. It's not to just see a destination and go on attractions and tick off a bucket list item. For me, traveling is about learning and meeting new people. My favorite travels that I've done, and it's the reason I love cruises so much, is because we will literally talk to every single waiter. We'll literally know everyone on the boat. Like, that is what me and my partner love so much about travel, is by having these conversations, because you never know who you're going to meet at all. And I think it's just such a great way to help you grow personally, is by leaving your home country, your home city, because the world is truly so big. And I don't think you ever realize how big it is until you're put in an environment where you only know yourself or like your travel buddy. But like being in a city where you know no one, you don't even sometimes speak the language, you definitely learn more about yourself and how you cope in situations like this. There's no better way to understand you than being completely alone in a city that you've never been to before. And I think that's why I'm so big on travel young as well, is the world is so big and you have so much to experience. And personal development isn't just sitting and reading books every day, sitting and journaling. Personal development is just by understanding yourself more and getting to know yourself more. And the only way you're going to do that is by giving time to yourself. So, if you have the opportunity to go traveling, please go traveling and don't be scared to talk to people. Your waiter comes up to you. Don't be scared to have a 30-minute conversation with them. Okay, yes, 30 minutes sounds crazy. 5 minutes. Ask them how they are. Ask if they've lived in this city for their whole life. Because trust me, they're going to give you insights. They're going to give you the best travel tips for that city, but also you're just going to learn something new. And I think the main takeaway from this entire episode is to continue to put yourself in environments where you're forced to get to know yourself better. Forced to understand yourself better, forced to make new connections, forced to just keep learning about new insights. Because the more we can get to know each other better, the better we can live our experience and better we can make informed judgments and react in a way that's healthy and positive rather than just reacting based on emotion and not really understanding where any of your thoughts and feelings come from. So that was a little tangent of that episode, but thank you so much for listening. Let me know in the comments how you found this. If you've ever traveled before or moved out of home, let me know. And if you found it a valuable experience. And like always, if you want to be a part of the episode, send me a voice message at twostrangersmeet.com/record your message and you can be a part of the next episode. We'll see you next week, guys.